He's good. He's good.
Dabo, do you remember, was it really soon after you took over that you decided prep for Georgia Tech's flexible was going to be a year-round thing?
Yeah. My first year. Well, y'all know my first week. I've never been around a triple option in my life, not a day in my life. I grew up in the I formation. It's what I played in. It's what I started my coaching career in. Could coach it today. It's ingrained in me. And then kind of got into the spread stuff in '98. We started doing some of that stuff, and then when I came to Clemson, we were four wides, no tight end half the time, and throwing it every snap. So I've kind of been across the board, but I've never been around triple option. And then, I get the job on a Monday, and oh, by the way, we're playing a triple option team on Saturday, and it's Paul Johnson's first year. Nobody knows anything about it. So it was, I learned. And then we go, my first full year, we win the division, and we play in the championship down there at Tampa. And, Spiller got the MVP of the game, and we lost. We couldn't stop them. They couldn't stop us. Nobody punted in the game. And they went 86 yards for the game-winning drive. I think they went about three or four fourth down conversions on us. And, I learned real quick that if we're going to have a chance, we're going to have to make this a part of what we do around here. And so we do. I mean, we if you don't, you're going to be behind the eight ball. And we just want to always, we need to always be able to have a recall, and just keep option football in front of them as far as the things that they're going to see when you play a team. Because we play them every year. It's a huge game for us. It's a rival game. So we get ready for all of our opponents every year, but they're very unique. And so some of your base things don't really apply. You kind of got to forget everything from a defensive standpoint. So, we started a long time ago. Just have a Georgia Tech period in spring, Georgia Tech period during fall camp, and just enough to just kind of teach the principles that we need and some of the fundamentals that you have to play with to have a chance. And so, we certainly have gotten better over the years, for sure.
How much is it, Dabo, you've played three option teams right off the bat here and early in the season? How much has those two previous experiences maybe helped for Georgia Tech this week?
Well, I think it helps, definitely. I mean, it'd be crazy to tell you that helped because you had to spend a lot of practice time defending, even though they're different. I will say that. Everybody thinks option teams are all the same, and it's like a one-stop shop, and it's not. Furman and Georgia Southern and Georgia Tech are very different. I mean, it's all ice cream, but it's strawberry and chocolate and vanilla, and it's different flavors of how they go about it, and so that's a challenge. And then Georgia Tech it's the ACC football team. I mean, they got really talented players that are playing at a high level. So, and then Paul Johnson's as good as it gets. I mean, he's as good as it gets when it comes to having answers for what you do. So I think it helps fundamentally and just how you have to play, the physicality you have to play, the mindset that you have to have. But it also helps them. Because you think about it, usually when they play us every year, they don't have anybody to study us on but themselves, right? So it works both ways. Because now they've got 2 games to study Clemson on how we defended certain things. So it's a double-edged sword that way.
You mentioned you guys have gotten better, it seems like, lately against Georgia Tech. What do you think is the biggest reason why you guys have shut them down or had so much success the last few years?
The games are always tough. I wouldn't say we've shut them down. I mean, they've hit some big plays on us, and just think that, like I said, we've just been better that day. I mean, I've had really good teams that have lost. And I've had some teams that maybe weren't as good as some of the teams that lost win. But we've just been better that day. We've done the things that we needed to do on that particular day to win the game, whether it be turnover margin, penalties, out big playing them, being fundamentally sound, physical at the line of scrimmage. Those are the type of things that you got to do if you're going to have a chance to win this game.
You talk about how you
Yeah, well, it's I guess unique, and they're similar. They're obviously coming from the same tree and background, so they do some similar things. Studying them on tape, there's from what we saw last week, but there's also some differences too. So I think they both kind of have their own personalities on what they're doing with their personnel, because personnel dictates a lot of stuff. So you know, you can't just pop a scheme in there and say, okay, this one size fits all. It doesn't work that way. You know, you've got to take your personnel and try to fit it within your scheme and make some adjustments to give yourself a chance to be successful. So there are a lot of similarities, you know, from a philosophy standpoint, but they have different people, different personnel, and so there's some differences as far as how they do things, whether it be third down, whether it be their pressure packages, you know, some of that type of stuff, some of the things they're doing coverage-wise, but similar for sure. And I don't know what the last part. Did you ask me another question?
About Nate Woody himself, have you guys?
Yeah, I don't really know Nate. I may have met him somewhere along the way. App's been down here a few times, but I don't really know him.
Do you think Paul Johnson maybe doesn't get enough credit or is undervalued as a coach, considering that's not a sexy system to recruit to? He's never high in the recruiting rankings. He always puts out a competitive program that has won ECC championships.
Yeah, I think Paul Johnson's a great football coach. I mean, he's been doing it a long time. He's won a bunch of games. And so I don't think he's really worried about all that. I think he's just worried about, you know, trying to win this game this week and get better at what they're doing. But he's been successful because he's been incredibly committed to what he does, and his career speaks for itself. He really doesn't owe anybody any apologies or explanation. He's one of the winningest coaches that has come through. And again, he's done it. Yes, he's been unique, but he's been incredibly successful doing it his way.
Is it unique that he also doesn't use a play sheet, like he just does it off the top of his head?
Well, it's because he don't need a play sheet. All he needs is answers. You know, who's tackling the fullback, who's running the alley, who's supporting the edge, what are they doing on the back end, you know, who's tackling my quarterback. And then he's just got answers. And when you've done it as long as him, I mean, he just knows it inside and out. That's another one of the reasons he's been so successful. And so few people do it. You know, if you aren't really schooled up on it, he's gonna get you. He's gonna get you sooner or later. And if you only got one pitch, he's definitely gonna get you. You got to mix it up on it. You can't just do the same thing over and over. You're in trouble, because he's seen it all.
Coach, you mentioned that these are all different flavors of ice cream, but what specifically makes Georgia Tech unique from other, option offenses?
Yeah, well, some of the formation stuff that they do, like for example, Georgia Southern they don't really cut a lot. They're really more split zone read, option principles that way, more double teams, as opposed Georgia Tech will cut you. All right, different, a little bit different schematically as far as how they block. Formations are different, so just a little more unique in his style of play, and that makes him different.
And I guess going off the cut blocking, as a defensive lineman, I guess, how can you counteract that?
You got to, well, it's something that you don't see all the time, and you better make sure you've worked on it a lot. But you gotta play with your hands. You gotta understand formations. You gotta understand splits. You gotta understand, how to play with your pads, and use your hands to defeat the blocks. So that just comes with some experience and just training your guys to go against it. It's one of the reasons, like I said, we work it all the time, because it's different. It's different, as opposed to seeing teams that are zone teams and you're trying to create distortion in the run lanes and covering guys up, and guys are moving and backs are pressing and creasing. It's different than when it's just trying to chop people down and get the ball in the perimeter right now. It's different techniques and different fundamentals, but number one, you got to have your eyes on the right things. Like I said, understand splits and formations, and then you got to do a great job playing with your hands, man. And you got to have a mindset that's different when you play a team like this.